Yeah.
All right, so welcome to episode number 2 of Coffee with the Captain. My name is Captain James with A Latte Fun Fishing, and I'm here today with Captain Rich of R&R Saltwater Fishing in Pensacola, Florida. So, today I guess we're going to talk a little bit about our combos and what it is exactly that we use when we're out on the water. Now, I would like to say, first off, that some of the gear that we use personally and what we use on our charters are a little bit different. So we're going to talk today about our charter gear. So,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you why. I'll tell you a real funny story real quick because this just happened to me. In fact, I'm going to grab my newest replacement rod. Oh my goodness.
I'll grab this one.
And I'll talk a little bit about this. This is a Penn Spin Fisher 7500 series. And I've got this slap full of 65-pound braid. So I just picked this one up to replace the one that my customer threw overboard.
Nice.
So a fish hit it, took off running, and he just let it go right over the side.
Gotta love it.
So there's a reason that we buy the rods and reels we do. This actually, I really like this pin. Holds up really well, and I abuse them probably more than I should.
So this spin fisher, that one's completely sealed, right?
Completely sealed.
I'll kill that sucker.
So this one you can dunk. I've had this out on the beach and waded out waist deep and had the reel underwater and no issues with it at all. In fact, my 4500 is the one that I actually had underwater most recently. That one's literally brand new.
Yeah, that's nice, man. I like the 65. I mean, this is a good size if you're offshore.
The 75, the 65 is not quite as big. It feels more like a standard
75?
inshore reel. 75's got a lot more weight to it, a lot more backbone. But if you're trying to get after, an amberjack or something like that, that's really a good reel. It's actually a decent tarpon setup as well.
Okay.
It's built stout enough. I mean, that's
Yeah, I mean, if for the 30 days we get to target them,
right.
it's great.
Right. But it's actually a really good rod. I'm a big fan of the Penn line. One particular reason I like the spin fish because you can dunk them. They are sealed. It is a sealed unit, but they're really smooth. There's been some changes as of late. One, the bail is much thicker. I mean, that's really stout. That's really solid. I like that. The fact that it is sealed. And then if I need parts, I can actually order the parts online and get the parts that I need. So, that's kind of nice.
It looks like a nice reel. I mean, I personally don't have much experience with the spin fishers. Like all my bigger ones, I have the Daiwa Saltist 6500 and the Quantum Cabo 100s, which I really like, but they're not. I guess the Saltist would be the only one that's sealed. I mean, it's got that mag seal in it now.
There's
what you looking for?
Grab this guy here.
This is what I've been using in inshore, though. This is a little cheap Shimano Sienna 4000 with 20-pound braid and an ugly stick rod. And it pretty much does everything I ask it to do inshore.
Now, see, I do the same thing. I've got a 4500 spin fish. The same thing, it's a sealed unit. It has the larger bail on it. Mm-hmm. And I've got 20-pound braid on it as well with about a
So do you personally fish these, or are these strictly for your charters?
Nah, this is what I'm fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, see, these pull dual purpose for me because I do fish these. Sometimes it's just easier to grab what I have that's already rigged. 'Cause
Oh, absolutely.
90% of the time, this is pre-rigged, and if I'm ready to go leave the house and just want to take a couple hours on the water, I grab a couple of these, and depending on where I'm going.
Now, when we were actually through a lure out off the dock earlier, and I had a heavier rod and reel combo, but the Penn 4000, this is a Penn Battle. This is what I usually take out on the charter. And this one I've got about 100 foot of mono on. I was actually using this the other day sheep's head fishing.
Nice.
So it's set up with a couple of split shots just for the current, and still got a size 1 hook on for the sheep's head.
I do like the battles. I mean, I use a lot of the fierce rods or fierce reels on my boat, especially for charters. I like them a lot. The only thing that the Fierce 2 doesn't have that the Battle has, or as far as I know, I'm not like all into the reels, but the HT100 drags.
Yes.
The Fierce 2 has the felt drags, and but what I hear, the Fierce 3 has HT100s. So I may upgrade.
The Penn Battle has the HT100.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. That was one of the things that I really liked about it. Now, this one's not as sealed as the Spinfish.
Yeah.
But when you're fishing with it, it feels the same. It has a nice feel to it. It's really smooth. The drag's really smooth. And
your light just went out.
Technical difficulty there. I'm going to fix that.
There you go.
And this would be a good point to take a break. And we're back. And we're back.
You all right?
So I really like the looks of those reels.
So this is my Daiwa Saltiga 20 2-speed. It does have a jig on it.
And that's one of your charter?
I do use these on charters, and I take them out on personal use. If I'll use it, if I trust it, I'm gonna trust it with my customers. So
now, is that a combo that you bought, or is that rod one that you picked out specifically for?
Well, this is a Star Aerial jigging rod. I like my jigging rods, especially because I do a lot of jigging, and dual purpose for bottom fishing.
Gotcha.
They hold pretty strong line and pretty good weight, because I can run a 7-ounce jig on this, no problem, and I still get plenty of backbone and a lot of bend in the rod.
Nice.
And then this 20 has about 25 pounds of drag, max drag on it, and I usually keep it around 20 pounds of drag, so people aren't letting it go, because you get about 25, 30 pounds of drag on stuff, and some people will let go.
I had it set on about 10 pounds right in the drink, so it happens. And I can't say that I'm not guilty. Usually what happens is somebody will set the rod down, which I've had that happen too, to one of these guys. This is a level wind, and I really put a lot of thought into this. This particular combo, I probably put more thought into than anything else. Seriously, the other rods or reels that I have, I bought off the shelf, Penn Battle 2, with a 7-foot rod that came with it. Not a whole lot of thought went into that, other than I liked the way it felt. The price was right. It was right at $100.
Yep.
And it's kind of a workhorse. Same thing with this for a bottom rod. So I bought a Penn Mariner 2 rod. It's rated for 15 to 30 pound. One of the things I liked about it had plenty of backbone, but it's actually a medium action rod. So there's a couple of things about that worked out really well. I've got these spooled up. I've got 4 or 5 of these, and I've got them spooled up with some 30-pound mono, and I use these for bottom fishing.
Any reason in
I don't
particular
know if you can see.
you choose mono over braid?
Yes. And this had a very specific reason. So this particular rod has got a pretty sensitive tip, but I've got enough drag, and I think it's about 25 pounds, I think, max. But I've got enough drag to pretty much land anything that we're catching on 30-pound anyway. And this just has a simple bottom rig on it. So a lot of times when I've got people who don't do a lot of fishing, one of the easiest things to do is to have them bottom fish. This rod with the sensitive tip, then the reason I chose it was it bends. It'll bend over in half. You still have a lot of backbone, but it starts further down the rod, so you get that nice rod tip bend.
Oh yeah.
And a first-time fisherman, a novice fisherman, knows when he's on a good fish. If that rod is bent over.
Yes.
It does have a nice clicker on it.
And the level wind, you don't have to sit there
and the level
thumb
wind.
spool. See, that's something I got to tell everybody who gets on the boat who hasn't fished with a non-level wind is when you're coming up, you got to thumb that line back on there so it's even. I mean, you might not be able to see it, but it is piled up just a little bit more on the right-hand side of this reel.
Yeah, mine's setting pretty level.
Oh, yeah. Well, you drop this 100-foot down, and then, they'll come in. That's why I purposely keep these a little less spooled than full spool, because once they pack on there,
yeah,
especially if they're not thumbing, it'll pack on to one side, and a lot of times it'll get caught in these channels, like in the back, the crossbars.
And if you're not a fisherman, it is hard to thumb a reel. And I can tell you from, when I first started fishing, I remember doing it and having my dad yell at me. Mm-hmm. But, when you're fighting a fish and you're concentrating on, okay, what is it I need to do, you're less likely to look down at the line and keep your thumb on it and work that line back and forth.
Well, that's the last thing they're trying to do when they're trying to keep the rod straight and they're trying to keep turning it. They're trying to keep the fish out of the rocks. I mean, they're not thinking about what's natural to me and you.
Well, a lot of it was learned too. I won't say it absolutely came natural, but one of my favorite things is when a fish is taking drag, and I look over and I see the customer I'm like, don't reel, don't crank. Let him run. When he stopped, okay, pull up a little bit, now reel back down. Pull up a little bit, reel back down. Another funny thing, try to get that on the screen, is when you see them high stick your rod.
Yeah.
If that rod is up over your shoulder,
I wouldn't call it
it's
funny.
too high. No, it's not funny. And I have heard my rods, I've got one somewhere, I think it might be out in the garage. I heard it crack before it broke. And I look, and I'm driving the boat, and I look back, and I see the customer's got the rod up in the air, and I'm like, oh, no, too high. And I could hear it, kind of crackle. And then the next thing you know, I've got a broken tip, and it's just dangling from the rod. Still landed the fish. That was the important thing. The line held. The rod should have. So that was one of those deals where, you look at it and you go, okay, what failed? What went wrong? Mm-hmm. This is a learning experience. And I think the failure was me not telling the client, hey, don't, you don't have to raise it
Nothing
that high.
over 45 degrees.
Short pumps. Yep. Short pumps. That's all it takes. In fact, you can't really see from this camera angle, but I'm sure you can imagine. I've got the rod here. I'll set it on the table, okay? It's still on the table. It's still on the table. It's still, and then there's about 45 degrees. So it's moved 3 feet. And the handle hasn't moved at all. It's still sitting on the table. So those short little pumps, you're bringing the fish up 3 feet each time you give it that little bitty pump. Mm-hmm. And it's, I always laugh, even when I see experienced fishermen do the same thing. You know, part of it is you get excited.
Oh, yeah.
And you start cranking the fish. You don't have to pull it in the boat with the rod.
Well, if you start low, if you start low and you lift up as you're pulling, I mean, you're getting, you're essentially getting more lift out of it than you would if you just lift that tip all the way out.
Yeah, and the tip, when you look at the rod, the base is a much heavier duty than the tip. So stop lifting with the tip, just lift with the...
Well, I mean, you
can really feel the backbone on these, too. They're solid.
Compared to this one, that's a broomstick.
Oh, yeah, and I actually have some broomsticks. My trolling rods are broomsticks for real. So that's the chartered gear. Then I've also got here, this is what I'm trolling with. So this is all roller rod, and it really is. I don't know if you can see that on the screen or not. This is a tuna stick. It's called the tuna tamer, or what's it called? The Mac Daddy. I think that was the name of the rod. Wow. So aluminum seats. Yeah, there it is. The Mac Daddy.
The Mac Daddy.
So this one is rated for a line weight 30 to 80 pounds.
That's a huge spread.
That is a huge spread. So that's what's recommended. That's another thing about rods. Every rod is different. So it's recommended to only go to 80. In this particular rod, I've got 65-pound braid and a 250-pound leader running to this stretch 25. This thing doesn't bend much at all. It's got a whole lot of backbone, but it's great for trolling because of that purpose. You're putting a lot of strain on a rod and reel. I think the max drag on this reel is about 50 pounds. It's all you want to do if you're standing up fighting to go to max drag on this. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's 50 pounds, which may not sound like a lot, but it's 50 pounds on the end of this stick that's 6 foot away from you. So it's like holding 50 pounds out to the side. In front of you, close to your body, it's not that big a deal, but, pick up a bag of concrete and then hold it out away from your body.
Yep.
And see how long you can hold that.
Well, you're also, I mean, the bend
it's
of the
a
rod.
lot of...
Yeah, the bend of the rod, the line going through the water, that all adds to the drag, too.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think you said you have this set for 25 pounds or so.
Right.
By the time it gets to the fish, I me's probably 35 pounds of drag that's actually on it if you're at max drag on this.
Now, here's a trick. It's more reel related than rod related, but a trick that I like to do. So when I set the drag on this, if I am trolling with something like the stretch 25 or another popper or something like that, I'll put it out behind the boat. I'll feed the line out. I'll get it in the position that I want, which is a whole nother topic about how to run trolling lures. But once I get it out, then I will start to apply the drag. So yeah, I'll let a little bit of line out until it's, or I'll apply a little bit of drag until the lure stops pulling drag.
Yeah.
And then I'll go just a little bit past that. So the drag is still set light enough. If a fish hits it, he can run. And here's my thought on that. And this depends, too, on how fast you're trolling. The faster you're trolling, the deeper that stretch 25 is going to dive. Mm-hmm. and the more pressure it puts on the rod. So you're going to need more drag.
Oh yeah.
But if you've got a 50-pound wahoo that can swim 60 miles an hour, going the opposite direction when it hits that lure, and you're going, 12 to 14 knots the other way, all of a sudden, man, that's a lot of strain. That's a lot of stress. And you don't want the hook to pull out just from the two meeting.
The initial strike.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of pressure that hook has to endure. The reason I've got the 200-pound mono leader, and I've got on that particular one, I think I've got about 10 foot, is to give it a little bit of stretch. I wanted something that if a toothy critter hits it, it might have a chance to stay together.
So
but
why not let's say a wind-on leader or a top shot, and then a wire leader?
And I do that. I've got one rigged up here with a 7-strand wire.
There you go.
On it. That's pretty beefy. With a Tormentor Wahoo lure. And it's all kind of held up there. So you can see that guy. Mm-hmm. So this is a jet head, and it's got a wire leader on it. So yeah, I have a combination. It kind of depends on what I'm targeting. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I found this year, and it may be a fluke, but one of the things I noticed was I actually got more bites on the mono than I did on the cable. Okay. I haven't lost a fish yet on cable. I haven't lost a fish on cable. I've been bit off several times on mono, but I feel like it's about 2-to-1 more strikes, mm-hmm. and it could be a fluke that's kind of chewed up too.
Yeah. Well, see, what I like to do is use about a.
That's got some teeth marks on it.
I like to do my mono, and then
look at that hook. Look at the size of that thing. That is a Wahoo hook, and sharp.
Yeah, I like to do my mono, and then come off of like 18 to 20 inches of wire. So I don't have this 4-foot, 8-foot section of wire. I only have this short section. So if they deep throat the lure, I'm protected. Or if they get in front of it and hit it.
Well, right? Yeah, I can't reach. That's a long reach from here. You can't tell probably on camera. That's pretty far reach. Well, that's the thing. I think this year I'm trying to work on that tactic where I'm tackling down. I'm going back to basics. Mm-hmm. I think in a lot of situations, I was way over tackling. And my thought was, you never know. It could be the fish of a lifetime. Don't let it get away because, you're running some, too light a tackle. Yeah. And I've had that happen so many times, and I actually tease some people that I've taken fishing that come offshore with me with an inshore setup, like we were talking about earlier, the 4000. Now, I generally will bring one of these on the boat. In fact, this one right here, I like to bring with us on the boat, and the way I've got it rigged up now with just a live bait hook, I can throw a pilchard or a piece of cut bait, piece of squid. If I've got fish that swim up around the boat, maybe a mahi or tuna or something comes into our spread, we can stop, and I've got something rigged up that I can put a bait on and pitch out and just be ready to go.
Oh, yeah.
So
you need a couple of those.
Always like to be rigged and ready for, anything that happens. And this is interesting because we were talking about this earlier. Mm-hmm. So I've got a uni to uni. I've got a slip sinker, and I've used a split shot to stop it. So no swivel. So I'm trying to tackle down a little bit. But there are times where I like a swivel too, especially in the faster current, So my line isn't getting twisted up.
Twisting up, yeah.
It's able to spin a little more free. I think it's one of those things, how you're rigging up those same rods and reels. And this really is an inshore reel, but it does have its place offshore. Like I said, you come up on the weed lines we saw with the triple tail on there. You want something light that you can throw those triple tail.
Yep.
They've got great eyesight, and you need to be able to
little swim bait,
put on
live shrimp,
put on some light leader to throw to them. And this actually has a pretty heavy piece of leader. That's about 30 pound there.
Yeah.
On some 20 pound braid. I'm not sure what I was using that for, but it was rigged up for something.
Yeah.
So yeah, we generally keep a few of those on the boat, even when we go offshore, just so we have something to throw, just in case. You never know what's going to swim by, and I always feel like it's one of those situations. I don't want to miss the fish of a lifetime because I wasn't ready.
Oh yeah, that's like if it's spring to summer. If I'm offshore, even if I'm 20, 30 miles out, I got a cobia rod sitting on the boat.
Oh yeah,
it's rigged, it's ready in case one swims by the boat and I see a turtle and one's on it or two's on it. I'm tossing on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will stop the boat at 30 miles an hour if I see a turtle.
I like to have I like to have a cobia jig tied on at all times on my boat, and I think I can't remember 2 years ago maybe I started doing that, and it was because every time I saw a cobia, I didn't have anything to throw.
Yeah.
And the next day we went out, and it happened multiple times, not 2 or 3, like 7 or 10.
Yeah.
And we kept seeing cobia, and I kept coming back and telling people, hey, we were here and we saw cobia, and we were, you guys got to forgive me if you're not from this area and you don't know the places I'm about to mention. But, if we were along the beach, Pensacola Beach, or if we were at the Massachusetts, or, these are all places, it's a sunken USS destroyer that's close to, or battleship, close to the Pensacola Pass. And we would see these cobia, and I had nothing to throw at them. When they were small, I wasn't so upset.
Yeah.
But when it was a legal cobia,
yeah. When they're when you can see them and they look like good fish,
yeah,
that's when I'm rushing, and I'm like, if I don't have anything tied up, I'm like, put a swim bait
I'm
on.
ready
do
now.
Something. Give me that 20-pound test, and let's just go for it.
I'll just fight it. Yeah, I've got the drag set. I'll fight it. That brings up a good point too. That's probably worth mentioning. Mm-hmm. So, the way I like to set my rods, everybody's different. This is just how I do it. It doesn't make it right, but I feel comfortable with it.
Okay.
I set my drag to a third of the breaking strength of the approximately a third of the breaking strength. So, for instance, if this was 30-pound braid, the drag would be no more than 10 pounds. And I like to set it before I leave the dock.
Yeah.
Because the worst thing that can happen, is your drag be cranked down and you hook a fish and you break it off. I change my leader material constantly. Mm-hmm. My main line, I'm not so worried about, but it's not seeing the chafing that the leader is.
10 feet off of that probably in a fishing day.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if I'm around bridges or rocks or anything, that once the braid starts getting frayed, I'm cutting to new braid. I'm cutting to nice stuff.
Absolutely.
But
there, and I spool these. The reason it's slap full is so I can do that.
Yeah.
I can splice and go.
Well, see, when I set my drag, depends on the species. About it later. Like if we're going for sheep's head, my drag's tight. It's tightened down enough to where I can set the hook on those fish, and I can bring them in, give them a little bit of play, but not much. If we're doing redfish, I'm probably half or better of whatever the breaking strength is on the line. Depending on what size reds we're fishing. If we're doing bull reds, 30 plus inch reds, I got tight drag and they're still pulling.
But I think there it depends. In my mind, it just depends on where we're fishing.
Yeah.
If we are on the bridge, if we're around structure, then I got to be able to stop them. I don't want to get me wrapped around the pilings. I got to be able to turn them. But at the same time, if I set my drag, in this case, it's actually set pretty light. It's probably about 4 pounds. But I know, let's not hook ourselves today.
I get to pull it out.
And yeah, not a problem. Right in the leg. But I know that no matter what I hook up to on this rod, and I can't even get it on camera, but no matter what I hook up to on this rod, I'm not going to break my rod.
Yeah.
I'm not going to break the line. It's not going to be tackle failure that causes me to lose a fish.
Yeah, I mean,
at that point, it's angler failure.
You got it set pretty good here. I mean,
it's not overly tight.
No, it's not. Yeah, I got this one set at like I said, about 7-8 pounds.
It's pretty tight.
Oh yeah, I keep them like this, just for the simple fact that when people get on here and it's just, and if the fish is pulling on it, I don't want to have to be, all right, stop reeling, let me grab it, tighten it up, a couple clicks, and it's still going.
Well, I really think
against the drag.
It depends. So, it depends on the situation and the species of fish you're targeting.
Oh yeah.
But I just think, as a good rule of thumb, if I preset the drag on a trip, I can hand the customer the right rod with the right lure or the right bait, and the drag is preset, and I don't have to worry about them cranking the drag down.
Yeah.
And I usually, if they're fighting a fish, I'm trying to watch and see exactly what it is they're doing, and guide them and try to give them proper technique. Again, I'm not the expert. I don't think that I know it all, but just for over the years, what's worked for me, and this is what I try to pass along to them, just to help make your chances better of landing that trophy fish.
Yeah. And what works for you may not be the thing that works for me or works for them, or I mean,
yeah,
everybody's got their own way of doing things and how they learned to do it. Like me, you may throw a LY to a triple tail. I'm throwing a shrimp. You may.
No, I like my chances with the shrimp and the triple tail too.
But I know a ton of people, who are just like, oh, this is the best bait inshore. This is the best bait, and I love LY. I love going out. I'll catch a cast net full of them, but I'm also gonna, if I'm staying inshore, I'm gonna have 7-8 dozen of shrimp too.
Oh, I agree. Again, just like the rods, I think with bait, there's better bait for different situations. Right now, it is winter, I guess, here.
Yes.
In Florida.
You can call it winter.
It's just 70 degrees, but it's cold. It's cold. I've got on long sleeves. I was cold. But the shrimp still seems to be kind of a winner right now. And, I've had some select baits the last couple of times that I've been fishing. I've had really good bait and couldn't get a bite and gone to a shrimp and just get lit up.
Oh, yeah.
Where you just can't keep a bait on the bottom. It hit the water. I threw a shrimp at a piling on Christmas Day, and the thing jumped 2 foot out of the water. When it hit the water, it jumped. And I thought, what is going on? And as soon as it landed, a red come up and smashed it.
Nice.
Yeah. And unfortunately, too big to keep.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, that's the way it goes.
This time of year especially, they're giants. They're, it's hard to find a slot red. They're all giants.
Oh, yeah.
But, No, sometimes shrimp is the key to, a good day. I always try to take a variety of baits on the boat. In fact, it's kind of like a running joke between a lot of the folks I know on social media and whatnot, that we use shrimp or squid for everything, which is true. I always have squid on the boat.
Yep.
If I go offshore, you better bet there's a couple pounds of frozen squid on the boat at least. If nothing else is working,
Squid works.
sometimes squid works.
If
Puts a lot of scent in the water.
Yeah, if I'm leaving the bay, I'll have 5 pounds of shrimp at least. Depending on what I'm doing, especially deep dropping.
Now, somebody brought this up to me the other day, and I thought this was kind of neat. And I'm going to try it. I'm actually going to try. Next time I'm offshore, I'm taking some shrimp with me. Mm-hmm. We were talking about the sheephead and where sheephead go. And where do they go in the summer? Where are they at in the winter? And I said, well, a lot of times there's resident fish. They're always around. Mm-hmm. You just don't catch them. And some of the deep spots in the summer, when the fish go deep to try to find that cool water, when the water's real hot, they go deep. The fish are there holding on the same structure, but nobody drops a shrimp down in 80 foot of water, 90 foot of water. I've never been with anybody to drop a shrimp in 90 foot of water.
I tried it.
Did you?
This past summer.
Were you able to?
No.
To bring up anything? No.
No. I was using shrimp on everything, and the only other bait we had, because we started off as a bait trip, and it was just so nice offshore, and I was like, all right, let's cast net some bait. We got like 3 or 4 dozen, and I was like, let's go offshore. Well, we quickly ran out of bait.
Right.
4 dozen baits don't take long. And then the only thing I had left was shrimp and bull minnows, and I was like, all right, let's use the live bait. And we were dropping down to Mingos and nothing.
Really?
I was like, man, you got to be kidding me. But
now, see, I would have thought the Mingos would have tore them shrimp up.
No, at least not with me. But we left a few out and let them kind of dry up a little bit and cut them up in half. And once they started getting a better scent on them, like more smelly, they worked. But the fish bites were actually producing better than.
Now, see, that's funny too. I had a night trip that I ran, and we went to the bridge after some bull reds, and I had caught earlier that day. I'd caught 4 or 5 dozen threadfin, and I thought, man, this would be great. I had a bunch of menhaden. I thought, man, this will be great. So I threw half the menhaden in my live well. The other half I threw in the fish box. And I thought, well, I'll freeze them up. If I don't use them, I'll have cut bait. So we get to our spot, and I put 3 lines out. And I've got one free line, I've got one deep, and I've got one running a little shallow. Nothing. And we set on this spot, and I'm marking fish. The screen is lit up, and I can show you a picture of it right here. And the screen's lit up. I can see the fish. They're there. Nothing's biting. So I reel up one of the lines to check the bait. The bait's still frisky as all get out, swimming around. I take the bait off, throw it back in the live well, and I grab one of the dead baits. I cut the head and the tail off, hook the body on a 3/0 circle hook, the bottom rig, drop it back down. Before it hits the bottom, I've got a red on.
Oh, yeah.
They stayed lit up. I hand the rod to my customer. He starts fighting the fish. I start reeling in the other lines just to clear him and get him out of the way because he's got a nice fish on. So as it's coming up, I'm grabbing the net, and I'm pulling up lines. I go ahead and take that head that I cut off. I take the live menhaden off, throw it back in the water, hook the head, drop it in, land his fish. No sooner than it's in the net, the other rod goes off with the dead bait.
Yeah.
And that particular night, dead bait was the key. And we landed, I think it was either 8 or 10 within an hour, and they were just back to back.
Nice.
Amazing
Some days,
really good night of fishing. It started out super, super slow, and here I've got these nice fresh baits.
mhm.
I think maybe we even had some live mullet in that mix too. But the key ended up being, and once we figured it out, the dead bait was what they wanted. That was
Sometimes
it.
they don't want to fight for it. They don't want to chase
Easy
it.
meal.
Yeah, it's there. I smell it. I'm eating it. And sometimes that's what it takes is to just switch it up just a little bit. You hear of people all the time. Talking about the way they caught this fish. They especially on the East Coast. They it's a joke now about catching mutton. Now they stomp on croaker heads. And it's not really a joke, but I've seen it done. But it's funny. It's sometimes that's what it takes.
I've been told that's the way to do it. That's what I've heard.
Yeah.
So, and I try not to step on my bait when I can help it because it just gets all over your shoe and
I still want to
track
go
around the
We
boat.
got to go this year. Take the boat over to the East Coast.
Oh, to the East Coast? Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
I gotta knock a couple fish off my East Coast list.
I would like to take a trip down to the Keys, I think.
During lobster.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, a little mini season would be the time to go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But there's so many people going to maybe that's not the optimal time, but I would love to be there for mini season. I think that'd be great.
I'd love to go down not this time of year because it's nice and warm today, but like on the days where it's cold.
Yeah.
I'd rather be.
There's been a few days here recently where I thought, man, I need to go south.
Yeah.
I need to go south. They still have 80 degrees, I need to be south. What else was I had a question for you.
No.
No?
The answer is no.
On your I remember what it was. So this time of year, right? Winter is getting colder. What kind of fish can you expect to catch inshore?
Right now, you're looking for reds. You're looking for sheep's head, trout. Speckled trout's been a pretty good bite, and also the white trout around structure. That's pretty much it right now. I mean, once the water temperature warms up, we got a whole bunch of other stuff we can target. But like mangrove snapper is hit and miss right now. You can get.
I had a lot of miss on mangrove the other day. My go-to spot was pretty dry.
I had a pretty good hit on them. So and that was freakish to me because it's not normal that you catch them this time of year. But they are on the smaller side. You're hitting.
That's what we saw too. Was the smaller ones.
Yeah, you're hitting 2 or 3, 9.5 inches to every 10-inch, 11-inch one you get.
My go-to spot. I didn't catch anything over 8. We were back from our break. So I think we've covered a little bit of the inshore rod and offshore rod. Tell you what, if you found any of this information helpful at all, please like and subscribe. If you have any questions, feel free to give us a call. You can reach Rich at
850-889-6589.
Or you can give me a call. My number is 850-377-3777. Be more than happy to chat with you. You can also email us. Look us up on social media. Leave a comment in the description. If you have a question, if there's something that you would like to know from a full-time captain, leave a comment. We'll be more than happy to answer it and post a video as well. Coming soon to a theater near you, we're gonna try to do a podcast live and with audience participation, so you'll actually be able to come where we are
That's
and
gonna be
ask
fun.
questions live.
I think that'll be a lot of fun.
Maybe we should have them answer the questions.
That's
That would be even better.
yeah. Us asking them the questions.
I've got some questions. If you guys have some tips, here's one. I've got a question I really want to know. Leave a comment down below. Tell me what your favorite inshore setup is. What's your go-to combo? I really want to know.
Me too.
I'm just curious.
I'm always looking for the better option. You know, if they find something better, maybe I'll like it better.
Absolutely. Well, until next time, I've been Captain James,
I'm Captain Richard.
hoping that you have a latte fun fishing. Be sure to like and subscribe. Check us out on iTunes, Google Play, or Google Podcast, Anchor, Spotify,
Where else you got us?
pretty much everywhere. We are everywhere, but especially YouTube. Please be sure to like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell for the next video. That's it.
That's it.
I'm out of here.
Peace.
Get my coffee. I'm gone.
I'm back to Mountain Dew.